Like we went back into history,
Love
into
it.
another time zone.
And in fact, it was like a fun time zone.
Yeah, absolutely. That is Double HP, the glorious Double HP, and the fantastic group Tear Gas and Liquid Dip there. That one is titled I Was Born for This. And we're exploring the staying power of one of the contributors of that one. That's KO, moving into 19 years into the music industry. We're just speaking
Nice.
about his longevity, and he's able to actually impact not just within the hip hop community but outside. But we know his songs like Sete, Kara Kara were actually global phenomenons,
Yeah.
and also very much hits here on the African continent, not only from a South African context. Born Togozo Mdluli in Soweto, south of Johannesburg in 1980, the skilled lyricist emerged in 2006 as part of the iconic trio Tear Gas, and then he pursued his solo career in 2014 and pioneered a kwaito hip-hop hybrid style that he dubbed Skhanda rap. KO joins us on the line.
Skhanda
How are
King,
you
Mr.
doing?
Cash
They say you're
Time.
the king of cool, aren't you?
Hey, how you guys doing on this beautiful Friday?
Doing good, man.
We're good, we're
Awesome,
good.
man. Awesome.
Yeah, thank you for joining us and chatting about this. I mean, we were speaking about it off air, the fact that you do have this staying power. We kind of listened to that song, we're like, this is a completely different era of where we were in our lives. But you have not just reinvented yourself, you've stayed true to a sense of being, but also you've actually maintained a sense of prominence in terms of your popularity. You've created hits. You're not just there in the background. You are kind of one of the main kings of hip hop right now in South Africa. And I think you are one of the most pioneering right now,
Yeah.
amongst others. So tell us a little bit, how do you attribute that staying power?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, none of this is happening just based off my own willpower or anything like that. My longevity largely has to do with how I was brought up.
Mhm.
Uh, of course, God and a whole lot of hard work, and the fact that I think more than anything, just learning how to pivot. Whether that was maybe second nature based on the fact that one was able to, get some type of formal education and going to varsity, graduating, and just getting the fundamentals in order
Yeah.
before getting into the music space. So all those things, and also just remaining a student of the game, regardless, because you learn until you die. And
Mm.
if you're operating with that view, I think you can actually go further in life. So that's basically just been my formula up until this day.
You know, KO, we were speaking about the various transitions that we have witnessed in our hip hop culture. And back in the day when people were just emulating the American way of doing hip hop through the accents, but also the way that they rap. And then South Africa really changed things up with the kwaito scene. And then after that, we saw that transition of, hip hop that means something to who we are. So in our own languages, in the context of where we are, where we stay, and how we do things. And your era, and Tear Gas in around 2006 was also a huge pivot point and transition in the world of music, where we still had a strong focus on, telling the stories of our people and where we are, but also a transition into a cool kid era that was almost like private school hip hop, but still keeping it ghetto. Tell me about that 2006. It was really a big moment when you guys came into the scene as Tear Gas, and you guys brought in something fresh into the scene.
Yeah, it was quite a paradigm shift, if I may put it that way,
Yeah.
just because of we came in at the peak of kwaito and
Yeah.
house, and there was Brenda Fassi at the time who was crushing everything. So us coming in with the formula that we came in and seeing it land the way that it did, it just it was so encouraging, and it put the battery on our backs to actually continue honing our skills, and also just preaching the same message to our fellow peers in the space, especially within the hip hop fraternity, to say it is very important for us to study and be conscious of the market that we are servicing, because when you are in the music business, you basically are you're doing a sales pitch in a way, because you want to have you want to put your product in front of the people, and you want it to perform at its optimal level. And by doing that, with that view, you need to make sure that the music, for instance, and the presentation and everything else, that you establish that common ground with the audience that you are trying to cater to. So learning just those new nuances, as we were packaging the music and understanding the sonics of South African culture and everything else. And that's why it was important for us to even dabble into what quite the I guess the platform that Kwaito had already created for us, especially on as far as urban culture, because it wasn't too far off from hip hop, but they were just doing it their own way. So if we were, with us bringing hip hop to the fore, it had to almost kind of have the same DNA in some way, shape, or form, just to make it more relatable. Even hip hop is obviously more sophisticated, and it's just been so interesting, just learning all these things and all these twists and turns in terms of how one navigates these waters. Sometimes you have a good season, sometimes it's in on the low side of things, but you remain focused and remain sturdy in your journey, because the wheel always turns. So when the new wave comes in, you appreciate that and you respect it and you study it, and then you sort of kind of borrow whatever that you can borrow from those people. And then when the tide turns yet again, boom, it could be your season. So I operate with an optimistic view, and it's been like that ever since.
Yeah, you've been a shapeshifter in a way. You've been able to adapt to different environments, environments in the music industry. At times you've kind of pivoted, like you say, moved into an entrepreneurial environment, and you were able also to come back into the scene, kind of feeling the environment of what's happening at the time, feeling the sense of where the music is, and then you'd come back with a hit without us expectation. That shape-shifting, what characterizes it? I'm curious about that. How do you actually mark the indicators of what's happening in the music industry and at the time, looking forward to getting those little bit of nuggets of thought of how you do that? We'll come back to you, KO, after this short break. Stay there on the line.
With almost 2 decades ticked right as a marker and indicator of his longevity in the music industry, today we hang out with KO, Mr. Cash Time and Skhanda King himself, chatting about his career, his music, but also his new release called Phara City, and of course just all the different pivots he's made during his almost 2 decades in the industry. Thank you so much for staying with us. Let's speak about that, right? You speak about the fact that in the music industry there'll be off seasons, and we've seen so many artists go through that, right, where they're so popular and then all of a sudden they're not what is in at that time. And usually what happens is that we see those artists retreat and sort of go into themselves, go into a corner, many sort of unheard of again. But it feels like every time you go back and every time you retreat during what you would call an off season, it feels like you're cooking, it feels like you're reimagining and retransitioning into a new era. Give us insight on what happens during those off seasons that has you coming back with usually new sounds, new ideas, and really big hits.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's almost kind of like, it's not hibernation, but it's more like evolution, where if you're looking at how certain things play out in the animal kingdom, a snake sheds its skin every season. and but it's still the same snake in a way. So to me, it's almost kind of like you need to every other season you need to almost kind of, especially now where our attention span is so short in terms of consumption of
Yeah.
anything and everything.
Yeah, that's so true.
You also need to understand that that evolution needs to happen periodically, as often as possible, for you to forget what you knew and learn something new. I mean, there's AI. There's I mean, when we started, there was no Amapiano, there was no Om,
Yeah.
but those things came to the fore, and they hit hard. And when a wave like that comes and it hits you in the middle of your momentum, you need to either go with the wind or surf it as much as you possibly can. Also, it will probably take you to another part where you need to be at. So by that, you basically just learning how to navigate those waters. And for me, I encourage a lot of the people that I have conversations with, especially within my space, to say, when it's not your time, you need to be comfortable with the idea of someone else is in the forefront now. And instead of you being distraught, you need to actually just sit there and study that person, that why, like, understand what are the things that are making that person successful or maybe relevant at that particular time. Then while you are doing that, you are also just like a soccer player or an athlete. Just because right now soccer is off season, it doesn't mean that people are sitting at home and doing nothing. They are in the gym right now. Ronaldo is in the gym right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some of our boys from Bafana Bafana, they go to practice every day.
Yeah,
And that's just
absolutely.
how it's supposed to be. Just because it's not happening in front of the cameras or in
Sure.
front of the world doesn't mean
It's
that
not happening,
you're
yeah.
exactly. The workout doesn't have to stop. So
Yeah.
that's basically how I approach this thing.
Yeah, I wish we could touch on so many things, but maybe we can. Let's kind of maybe try fuse everything that you're up to right now in one go.
Yeah.
You've got a new album out, Phara City. You've got your label out, and you're working in fashion. Tell us a little bit about where you are right now and what you're thinking about your career and where you want to move things.
One of the things that I'm actually very excited about that I'm part of, there is a new product that is currently being rolled out in mostly the disadvantaged areas of our community, like in the townships and the villages. It's basically a Wi-Fi product
Oh, nice.
Okay.
recently launched. It's called Fiber Time. It's already being rolled out in Alex, in Kukuletu, Kailicha, and all those places. So basically, how people need to um, make sure that the community is eligible. Basically, to go onto the Fibertime website, which is fibertime.com, and get in there and vote for your community, if it's Soweto, if it's Tembisa, or
Love
wherever.
that.
And the more votes that come in, then that product basically gets activated in your neighborhood. So basically, it's just fiber for the entire family. You can basically just as soon as you have a router in the house, you can either buy day-to-day, packages
Yeah.
or a monthly package and stuff like that. So it's a product for the whole family. And for me, little things like that are so encouraging because I come from a disadvantaged background myself. I come from a small town in Mpumalanga
Yeah.
called Pichuchi. And for me to be where I am today, I had to basically change locations, and I'm in the big city, and that's how my dreams kicked off. But for some people today, because of the internet, they are able to now launch their careers from wherever they are.
Yeah.
So when being part of something like Father Time is something that is basically, it applies to my interest in community development and giving back to my people. So I'm a part of that.
I love
And
that.
also I have my fashion label, Skhanda World. And of course, the album Phara City is out right now. I have a single that we're busy pushing right now with Casper Vest called Supernova. The video is coming out pretty soon.
I love that. So Phara City is out with new collaborations, new hits like Supernova, like Togoza, and lots of collaborations there with different people from the hip-hop world, but also from the general music scene. Thank you so much for hanging out with us, KO. I think it's great to sort of hear your longevity, where it stems from, and how you continue to evolve within music, but also in all the different things that you do as well. And of course, helping the community. It's incredible. Thank you so much for your time.
Much appreciated, and thank you for having me on the show.
Love that. That is KO, hip-hop entrepreneur, and of course, Skhanda King, Mr. Cash Time, hang out with us right here on The Move. It's almost 11:30 Central Africa time. In the background, coming through from his brand new album titled Phara City, is this one titled Paradise, featuring Young Stunner.
Nice play of words there.
Yeah.